Hey there, my name is Tanya and I am the owner and photographer of Briston Imagery located in Charleston, South Carolina. And I wanted to come on here and make a relaxed, informal video aimed at people who enjoy doing photography as a hobby and people who are considering doing it as a profession, and even some of us who've been doing it for years. I wanted to have a candid talk about the business, the gear, and all of it. And I'm going to try to condense this down. But first, I have to give you the disclaimers. Number one, I am not a videographer. I'm a photographer. I don't shoot video. I don't know how to edit videos. This is all being done on my iPhone. So if this is not up to the standards and quality that you are used to, I do apologize in advance. Secondly, anything that I say in this video is going to be completely related to my experience and my opinions. That does not make them gospel. It does not mean that they're right or wrong. It doesn't mean that someone else may not have a completely different opinion and that they may be right or wrong. You take it for what it's worth. This is just something that I've been thinking about lately, and I wish that someone would have said these things to me earlier on. But I have to give credit where credit is due. I was surfing YouTube this week and I watched a couple of videos back to back. One was Frono's Photo, where he was doing a talk somewhere and he was talking about storytelling and telling the story about his mom, how she passed and everything. And I was really spoken to when he said a couple of things. First of all, he said that not every picture is going to be your best award-winning picture. Sometimes the story you tell is more important than the details of and the technicalities of the picture, which really spoke to me. And then he also said something along the lines of, you know, it's okay to have ISO in your, or grain in your picture, high ISO, that really the only people that's paying a whole lot of attention to that is us photographers, which, yeah, that resonated with me as well, because having a lot of noise in my pictures has been something that's annoyed me for years, and I've tried to avoid it, and now it seems to be coming back in fashion with people going back to film photography, so I'm learning to embrace that. So I wanted to thank Fro for saying those words, because they really spoke to me. And then right after Fro's video, Pete McKinnon had a newer video where he was talking about how in the beginning of his YouTube career, he would always say bangers only, insinuating something along the lines that you only put your best work out there. And he admits that his attitude on that maybe has changed some, because not every picture you take is your best work. And that was something that's frustrated me for years, that, you know, I'll spend an hour, you know, taking pictures, and when I'm editing them, I come back and there's only maybe 20, 25 that I think are good enough. And I get so frustrated with myself thinking, oh my God, I suck as a photographer. It's just good to hear these other people that, you know, I've looked up to for years and gone to for knowledge to say that, nope, that's normal. So I wanted to pass that along, that not every picture is going to be your best picture. Not every picture has to be an award-winning picture. If you're telling a story, that's what's most important. You're documenting a moment in time. So that was something that I wanted to share, because I don't think we hear that enough in the photographer community. The other thing I wanted to talk about was gear. Very small amount on gear. Now, I'm a Canon shooter. I've been a Canon shooter forever. Even on a point and shoot, I was Canon. So I learned the Canon system. I have shot on a Nikon. I didn't like it. Not just because everything Nikon is backwards to everything Canon. Like if you turn the lens this way for Canon, you turn it that way for Nikon. That was weird for me. But also, I just didn't like the menu system, things of that nature. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I digress. What I wanted to talk about was, I see a lot of new photographers in photography groups going, what gear should I get? What gear should I get? And I wish someone had said this to me when I started. When I started, you know, I had no idea what photography cost. I had no idea how expensive things got. I just knew that I wanted a camera that I could change lenses on so that I could get a really far away picture or a really close-up picture that I couldn't do on my phone or on a point and shoot. And so one Black Friday, my family went out and they got me a Rebel T5 for Christmas, and I was in love. It came with 2 kit lenses. It was great, and some of the best pictures I've ever taken was actually taken with this camera. I still have it. I shot on auto for a long time, And the problem with shooting on auto is that a lot of your pictures will be blurry because you're not controlling where the focus points are, and you're not controlling the aperture, and you're not controlling how fast the shutter is, and you're not controlling the ISO. So all the things that make your picture look the way you want it to look in your head, you have to control yourself on manual. So I quickly learned manual, and within a year, maybe a year and a half, I realized this isn't the camera for me. It's not that it took bad pictures, it took great pictures. I loved this camera for a really long time. The problem is the back of the camera. When I wanted to change a focal point, I had to figure out which one of these dang buttons I had to push while it's up to my eye and I'm trying to chase a kid or a bird or something that's moving. You don't always have all day long to get the right button. And God forbid you push the wrong button and you screw something up, you got to go back and fix it. The moment's gone. Also, when I wanted to change the ISO, the aperture, I had to push a button up here and a button here, all while it's up to my face, because when you're shooting outside, you can't see the back of these screens. So you have to have it up to your face. It just got frustrating. And so my next level up was I changed to a Canon 77D. Now this T5 on Black Friday in 2015 with 2 lenses in a bag. I believe they got it at Walmart. I think they paid about $400 for it, and they thought that was expensive, and I did too. So a couple years later, I'm frustrated with this camera. It's limiting me on what I can do. So I move up to the Canon 77D, which is also a crop sensor camera. So in my mind, I was thinking I can use the same lenses. I could even use the same batteries. And I'm just gonna, the back of the 77D had individual buttons for each setting that I wanted to change, which was good. And I used that for 3 or 4 years. And then I got, sorry, my watch was going off. I got frustrated with low light. I was noticing, because I like to do night photography, and I was noticing my pictures were coming back really grainy, like so grainy I couldn't use them. And I couldn't go past like ISO 900 on the thing. Now that could have just been me. I've met other people who are like, oh, you're crazy. I was able to go way higher and get good pictures. To each is their own. I couldn't get the pictures I wanted at a good ISO. So I waited when the Canon EOS R came out. I begged and pleaded my husband, and after it had been out for like a year and all the kinks had worked out, he bought me one for our anniversary. And it is my baby. It is right here. This is my original Canon EOS R. I still shoot with it. I still love it. It has individual buttons that I get to program. Like I made this one my ISO, shutter speed, aperture, it's all right here. I can touch the screen for my focal points, all with it by my eye. I love this camera, and I have one, well, I have more than one now, but this is my RF lens 2470. I can even program the ring to do something special. This camera really opened up my world, and I absolutely adore this camera. The only downfall with this camera is it has 1 card slot, and that's only been a problem with me once, luckily, at a real estate shoot. I had a card corrupt, and it's not that I did something wrong or it was a bad, cheap card. All cards run the risk of corrupting. It's just nature of the beast. And luckily for me, it happened on a real estate shoot, so I could go back and reshoot it, no big deal. It was embarrassing, it was an inconvenience for everybody, but we were able to reshoot it. Where if you're at a wedding or an event that's one and done, you don't get that opportunity to go back and redo it. So when I shoot weddings, I actually rent a EOS R6 or an EOS R5 because it has the 2 card slots, because I need that added security. So what I wanted to talk to people about is you can make great pictures on any camera, even a cell phone camera. What's going to make you want to upgrade, other than other photographers telling you have to, is the ease of access to the buttons you want to have access to, or the amount of light you want to get into your camera. The EOS R is a full frame camera, when the lenses on these things are huge, so I am able to really crank up the ISO on this thing and I don't even notice it. So that opened up the world to me. I was no longer stressing about ISO, and I was more focused on what I was doing. Now, the second part I wanted to talk to newbies, or even people like me that's been doing this for years, is I had a revelation this year. I don't know how to market my business, so I went to a free service that's offered everywhere in the United States, maybe other places. It's called SCORE, SCORE, and I signed up to get a mentor to help me with business. And I got this guy, and he was a nice guy, no complaints. He was a very successful businessman. He's launched several other businesses, none related to art or photography, which was a red flag for me, but nobody else volunteered to take me. So I took him, and we were talking. He said, oh, my work looks good, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't understand why I'm not getting, work, blah, 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 blah. And then we started talking about my pricing. And at this point, I was charging $400 for a session, and you got like 20 digital files with that. And I would give you a print credit, because I really wanted people to print. And he said to me, I can hire a lawyer to get me out of jail for less than $350, and you're charging $400 for pictures that I'm not even sure I'm gonna like, because he had had an experience where he paid someone money to take pictures and he didn't like the pictures. And so he thought that that was my problem. And I had issue with that, because all these mentors that you pay money to take their classes, or, PPA and all these places you go to for help deciding what do I charge, they say the polar opposite. I've heard mentors say, if you're not charging $400 for a session, you're not a real photographer. Everybody preaches you got to charge your cost of doing business. You do, but everyone's cost of doing business is different. I own my own studio. It's in my home. I don't have to pay for a brick and mortar building. I buy all of my gear basically with cash. I don't finance it. So there's not expense there. I work alone. And when I have an assistant, it's my husband or my daughter, and I don't pay them. So I don't have that expense. So, I don't have to charge $400 a session. So I went back and I said, you know what? I've always felt icky with the pricing myself. And everybody says, oh no, if you think you can afford yourself, then you're not charging enough, which it didn't work for me. Okay. And it's not going to work for everybody. The phone just stopped ringing, and I compared myself to everybody in town. And even at $400 a session, I was still the cheapest person in town, besides the person that charges $25, $50. And then, they're all over the, buyer beware page or whatever. I wanted to be a real photographer. I hate conflict. I didn't want to have any drama in my life that I didn't need. So I thought if I charged a higher amount, I would get a higher level of clientele. Well, that's not the case. I've had clientele who I took a picture of a family. I was a good 30 feet away because we wanted the backdrop scene as well. And one complaint I got was that this person couldn't tell what color her spouse's eyes were in the picture from 30 feet away. Everyone's eyes kind of look black at that distance. So, it happens. So just take that with a grain of salt. When you're doing your pricing, really look at what your cost of doing business is. If you don't have to charge $1,000 for a session, don't charge $1,000 for a session. It doesn't mean you're not a real photographer. It doesn't mean you're a bad photographer. It just means that that's where you're comfortable. So I hope I have helped some new people. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments. And again, this is just my experience, my opinion, and I just thought it would be nice to have some videos out there telling people that it's okay. Okay, we're all not at that $1,000, $1,500 level. We're all not, taking amazing pictures with every click of the shutter. We all don't have the most expensive gear, and it's okay. You need to love what you do, and that will come through in your work. And if you're not loving what you're doing, then you're stressing out. And just get these other people out of your head. You are there to impress your potential clients, to impress yourself, most importantly, We're not in it to impress other photographers. Okay? It's an art. You do you, I'll do me, and we'll all live happily ever after. Thanks, everybody.